Keith Ablow of Fox News proposed an idea that's truly terrifying. I have to say, of all the clips that we've covered of Fox News and all the bad arguments and silly points that they've made, this really may be the worst. I know that's saying a lot because Fox News has been going strong with this stupidity since, the mid-90s? But if this is not the absolute worst thing to ever come out of there, this is definitely top 5. Keith Ablow is going to call for American Jihad.
Well, consider this idea, an American Jihad. That's what our own Dr. Keith Ablow is calling for in his new op-ed.
He says, quote, an American jihad would embrace the correct belief that if every nation on earth were governed by freely elected leaders and by our Constitution, the world would be a far better place.
But now Dr. Keith is coming under fire for his idea. Why? Well, he joins us right now from Boston. Keith, let's start with, okay, you're calling for an American jihad. When you say jihad, what do you mean?
Well, I looked it up to make sure that I was being consistent with the spirit of the word, which is a struggle against non-believers. Those who don't believe in freedom, who don't believe in autonomy and liberty, are our natural enemies. And we need to again embrace the fact that we have manifest destiny as this country, as Americans, to not only remain American fundamentally in our own national character, but to spread our national character to other nations such that they would model ours.
Okay, well, here's an excerpt from it. It says, we would accept the fact that an American jihad could mean boots on the ground in many places in the world where human rights are being denigrated and horrors are unfolding. Because wherever leaders and movements appear that seek to trample upon the human spirit, we have a God-given right to intervene. Well, Dr. Ablow, the folks that are saying Allahu Akbar are worshiping a far different God than the God that I worship. And they also have a history for hundreds of years having a completely different set of government. So will they understand this language that you propose us speak to them?
I think cancer understands chemotherapy and surgery. And ISIS should understand an America re-emboldened and throwing off the terrible sort of backlash that President Obama represented when he told us to be embarrassed of our national character, to believe we don't build our businesses. With an American jihad, every business that is built is an offering. Every tax dollar is a tithing to what? To the march of liberty here and around the world.
Right now, Dr. Keith, we're being out-marketed and out-advertised by a group of thugs.
Absolutely. That's what I'm getting at. Let's re-embrace the brand from on high, which is the United States of America and our commitment to liberty. We didn't survive tyranny. We didn't defeat people in every war we've ever fought, essentially, for no reason. It's not by accident. It's because we're aligned with something called the truth. We should be proud of it, and we should act on it.
The difference between Keith Ablow and ISIS? Nothing. They are exactly the same. Not only is this guy stupid, and I mean that, I think he's unintelligent, I think he has a low IQ, I think he's not bright, but he's also dangerous. What he's advocating for here is flat out dangerous. He says, well, we have a God-given right to spread our values around the world because we are right. We know we're right. That's exactly what Al-Qaeda says. That's exactly what ISIS said or says. Get this. That's exactly what every single empire and every single marauding, savage, barbaric regime has said. I don't know if you know this, but Adolf Hitler did not wake up in the morning, comb his hair, and say, God, I'm an evil motherfucker who's fighting for all the wrong things and fighting for immorality. No, he thought, well, I'm obviously standing up for what's true. I'm obviously trying to create a master race and trying to create a utopian-like system in the future. So I'm just going to go out and murder all the Jews, and I'm going to go out and try to conquer the world. Do you not understand that? Do you not get that? This is the same argument that the Greek Empire used, the Roman Empire used, the different Chinese dynasties used. This is the same argument that Genghis Khan used. Every single empire throughout history used rationalizations to cover up the fact that they're going around the world killing people and forcing them to bend to their will. They all thought we're standing for the proper value system. I mean, what this guy wants to do, he wants to go around the world, topple governments, and set up McDonald's and Foot Lockers. That's not much different than going around the world toppling governments and setting up mosques and setting up Islamic states. At the end of the day, you're doing the same thing. You're conquering, you're killing people, you're forcing them to bend to your will. How about we just mind our business? How about that for a foreign policy? The only time we fuck with anybody is if they fuck with us first, and we fight back in terms of self-defense of the nation. I mean, outside of that, you become just as guilty as the people that you claim to hate. And then also, how can you possibly think that all these countries in the world would succeed with a government like what we have here in the U.S.? You really think the people in Tunisia are the exact same as the people of Australia? You really think the people in Britain or the U.S. are the same as the people in the Congo? Do you really think the people in North Korea, if we toppled their regime tomorrow, that it's okay, guys, they're going to set up a Jeffersonian democracy and it'll work perfectly? That's not going to happen, and we know it's not going to happen. It didn't work in Iraq. We toppled the government of Iraq, we got rid of Saddam, and then what happened? All-out fucking chaos. You had sectarian violence left and right. The Sunnis and the Shiites are at each other's throats. I mean, how arrogant of this guy to say, no, I know that we're right, I know our values are right, and we're going to force everybody else to abide by them, even if they don't want to or don't know how or don't care to or they're not organically at that point yet. And then we also, the idea that, well, we will end up doing what is this high-minded idea of spreading freedom and liberty. No, that's the cover story. You know what ends up happening when we accept that so-called responsibility? We end up just toppling governments and putting in regimes that are kind to our corporations. It's never about actually doing a purely humanitarian thing. Maybe there's a handful of examples of foreign policy initiatives that were somewhat humanitarian in nature, or mostly humanitarian in nature. You could argue maybe getting the Yazidis off the mountaintop in Iraq was that, maybe Bosnia, Kosovo, and maybe there's a handful of others. But the overwhelming majority of military interventions by the U.S., they're not doing it for idealistic and ideological reasons. We're doing it because, like, for example, with the Chiquita Banana Company, we went to South America and toppled governments because we wanted to put in authoritarian leaders who would allow our corporations to go in there and take all the fucking bananas. Just like we do this in other places with oil, just like we do this in other places with minerals and opium and other crops. I mean, if you look at the history of the United States and our foreign policy post-World War II, we're not supporting freedom and democracy around the world. We're going around the world, oftentimes overthrowing democratic regimes and putting into place dictators who will just support what we want. I mean, the fact that this guy doesn't know this, it's so naive of him, and it's so pathetic of him, and he doesn't even mention the military-industrial complex, or he's just flat out in favor of it. There's a problem when you make war a business, when a small number of people get very rich off of other people's pain. When you have KBR and Raytheon and Boeing and Halliburton and all these different companies that continue to make tanks, continue to make planes, continue to make weapons, and then they end up selling those weapons and making a lot of money off of it from the government through no-bid contracts, well, guess what? You've just incentivized a group of people to want more war, and they're going to lobby the government, give the government more war, and then the government's going to look for more areas where we could fight. And they'll use the veil of, it's okay, we're just getting involved for humanitarian reasons, we're just doing the right thing here. But of course, at the end of the day, a lot of people are making money off of it, and it really is just a cover story, because oftentimes it's only about the natural resources. But again, the most important thing to remember, and the scariest point about this, is don't let anybody ever tell you that we don't have extremists that are just as bad as extremists from the enemy, that are just as bad as jihadists. You're seeing it right here. I mean, the guy literally used the word. He's not even savvy enough to cover up the word to try to put a flowery rhetorical spin on it. He's just like, no, we should do American jihad. We need to fanaticize these fanatics.